Great. Welcome back to the Human First CEO series. My name is Nick Mate. I'm the CEO of Gainsight, and I am absolutely delighted to be accompanied here by my friend, and I think maybe professor based on his background, Professor Brian Halligan. I don't know if you've gotten a PhD or not, but you look the part very well. Thank you so much, Brian. Brian, if you don't know, is the founder and CEO of HubSpot, amazing company that's really inspired a lot of businesses in the tech world and beyond. And it's really great to have you here, Brian. Welcome.
It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Nick.
That's awesome. I assume that is the solution to the theory of everything for physics on the whiteboard, right? Is that what you solved, the grand unified theory?
It's my lunch order.
I'm very, very impressed. Yeah, even if that doesn't mean anything, it just immediately makes you look smarter. So we're already learning something from Brian. Buy a chalkboard. So we're going to talk about what we call human first business at Gainsight. Human first being the idea that everyone around us are just human beings, and although we have to focus on the bottom line, we got to make sure that we're driving value for all of our stakeholders. We're going to talk about what that means for our communities, what that means for our teammates, what that means for our customers, and what that means for our shareholders. But before all that, I want to get to know Brian as a human being. Brian, we're all kind of a little bit lonely these days with a small group of people. We're kind of holed up with our family. If you could bring one person into your quarantine at home to spend time with you during this challenging time, who would it be?
One, I think not permanently, but for a day, it'd be great to have Steve Jobs hanging around.
Oh,
he continues to inspire me, and all these great entrepreneurs and great business people come and go, and Elon Musk and everyone. But so much of the founding story of HubSpot was rooted in what actually he was up to at Apple. And, we visited. So I'll tell you an interesting day we had in the history of HubSpot. Dharmesh and I, my co-founder, we went to business school together, and they organized a field trip from Cambridge, Massachusetts to Silicon Valley. And in one morning, we met Steve Jobs. So a group of us got to meet Steve Jobs. It was just when the iPod came out, and he described how he made a new type of MP3 player really easy to use. He made this iTunes thing, and he had 99 cents a song, and it was this 1 + 1 + 1 = 10 story. And I just remember sitting there like, marketers, it's complicated. You needed a blog, you needed social media, search engine optimization, a good website, CRM, all these tools. Complicated. How do we do 1 + 1 + 1 = 10 for them? So the initial nugget kind of happened with Steve Jobs. And then that same afternoon, we visited a little startup called Salesforce.com and visited with Mark Bischoff, and I heard his story. So that's sort of how HubSpot, the nugget of the idea, sort of happened and formulated that day.
I hope you invested in both the companies you met that day, because on its own that would have been pretty.
I'm not sure I did. I should have, though.
Yeah, that was a pretty profitable day if you had invested. I'll actually answer the question too and say, and actually in a similar vein, I just completed Everything Store, which I don't know if you've read that before, but it's about Amazon and Bezos and all that. And so I would probably say Bezos for a day. I don't know if he'd like hanging out with us, but I would enjoy learning from him, even though it might be a little bit harsh at times. And I could just hand him my credit card, because it'd be more efficient than just transferring the money over the internet, because they've taken over all of our spending, as I'm sure they have for you all as well.
And I have the similar feeling. I have a feeling both Bezos and Jobs, brilliant men, a little mercurial perhaps.
Yeah. I don't know if they'd be the most fun to hang out with. Yeah,
but I'm not sure I want to spend a month with them. I'm not sure they'd be great at doing the dishes and whatnot. I feel like people talk about the things they've learned during quarantine and whatnot, and these exciting things they've done. I feel like I've been doing dishes for the last 4 months.
Oh, dude, I'm so good at dishes. Yeah, we have a dish LinkedIn Live dishwashing competition as our next one. So, we want to talk about human first, and as I mentioned, there's multiple stakeholders in your business and my business, and we have to think about all of them. The one that's pretty present this year is the community around us. And HubSpot is a global company. You guys show up in lots of different places, and there's a lot of global community issues. The first and foremost, obviously, COVID-19. And you guys, I think it's really interesting in your business because you serve so many small businesses that are unfortunately at the tip of the spear of the impact of COVID-19. Talk a little bit about both how your community of customers has been affected, but also what you tried to do to help that community during this crisis.
We've done a lot. COVID COVID-19 really impacts our customers. I kind of think we have two types of customers. We have startups and we have scale-ups. You're a scale-up, but a lot of our customers are startups too. And we ran a series of plays that helped them out. Like we made our freemium offerings much better. We lowered the price of our starter kind of tier for startups. We offered up to 90% discounts for up to 90 days for companies that were impacted. We did some programs for partners, and that set of kind of 4 plays seemed to work out. They seemed to be relatively well designed. The team did a pretty good job of implementing them. So I feel pretty good about, I think we'll look back a year from now and look at that, and I feel pretty good about the set of plays we put in place. One of the things we're looking at now, you probably have a lot of customer success people who watch this, is that we put in that program of you can have up to a 90% discount for up to 90 days.
Right.
Those cohorts are starting to wrap around, and that's gone pretty well. A surprising number of people have come back up to their full price or something near it, or bought an additional product. It's not back to 100%, but it's done much better than we originally anticipated.
That's interesting. When we were in the throes of the beginning of the crisis, we had similar discussion. Do we give parts of our product for free? How long do you do it? And I think there was this dialogue about, well, are we going to cannibalize sales, or is it going to hurt growth? And like, how did you guys have those kind of deliberations at that time? And when you look back on it, was it misguided to even deliberate it and just go forward? How do you think about that?
We didn't deliberate it for long. I kind of feel like I have 2 modes, and HubSpot has 2 modes, like wartime mode and then mode. Yeah. In a wartime, that was wartime. It was, the 3rd week in March. We made very quick decisions on that stuff. We communicated to them pretty broadly and aggressively, and communicated the same thing over and over again. That went pretty well. And the thesis was, 1, how do we build up some brand and goodwill with our customers during this tough time? And the second was, let's see if we can help our customers. I mean, they bet their business on us. Our customers for CRM, for marketing, for everything. And so let's see if we can really help them. And then let's hold on to them and let's get them on the way out. If we help them, we can get them on the way out. So for us, our sort of animating feature was, how do we keep them and hold on to them and help them weather the storm? And it's far so good. We don't know if this is a W shape. It's unclear what's going to happen, but the set of plays we ran worked. And by the way, our customer service organization has been challenged more than ever. I mean, they were Johnny on the spot rolling these programs out, and had to be super empathetic with the customers, super helpful, work through all the contractual issues. Like, it's an interesting time to be on the front lines of customer service. Your customers and your users have been really challenged, I would imagine, the last couple months.
100%. Yeah, it's interesting because they had more to do, more resources. Yeah, it's like the workload went up. Yeah, we'll talk more about that because I want to talk about customer success, obviously. I can't not talk about customer success. But let me get the appetizer of the other stuff first. So in the world of community, the other thing we dealt with both within our teams but also in the kind of broader world is this great and needed discussion around equality, Black Lives Matter. Obviously, we all have gone through it. Every company kind of had to process it. Talk a little bit about that kind of story, because HubSpot's been thinking about these issues for a long time. What the story was pre-2020 and then how it's evolved in 2020.
It's certainly been challenging and interesting. Some people say that you've got the march of history, and history marches on. History doesn't really march in my mind, Nick. It crawls incredibly slowly. 100%. And then it makes a jump or a leap. And so we've been crawling since the late 60s on these issues, and we're in mid-jump right now. And there's a lot of chaos around it, but I think we'll look back in 10 years at this year and be like, wow, that was actually a great year. That humanity made such progress in this great year. And so we want to be part of it. Like, if you look at the jump in the late 60s, companies really had nothing to do with that. I think companies are much more important. And because so little trust in leadership and in the media and typical institutions, employees at least look to their companies to take a stand on this stuff. So we took a stand. We were very aggressive on the stand. And then we're running a series of plays to see if we can have an impact. And the plays seem to be working. It's super, super early on the plays, but I'm pretty happy about the set of plays we ran.
Talk about some of the ones that you think have been impactful and maybe unique.
Yeah. I mean, I like Brian Stevenson a lot.
Yeah.
He's a very rational, sane, thoughtful human being. And I like what he's doing with the Equal Justice Initiative.
Me too.
So, you know, we did a big investment in that, put a bunch of money into Brian Stevenson's organization. We're opening a center at Howard University. We already have a marketing course we've been running there for a long time. We're opening a HubSpot center there.
Wow.
Interesting. And we're about to roll up a partnership with a great group called headcount.org. And if your listeners are looking to help get out the vote, headcount.org is a great organization. I ran into them actually through my Grateful Dead circles. They're always at Grateful Dead concerts trying to register voters. And we're doing a big partnership with them to get out the vote. And one of the things I remember, a couple days after the George Floyd killing, I read an article by Barack Obama. And Barack Obama was like, yeah, this is all great. And let's protest and let's make some noise about this stuff. But he said, at the end of the day, you got to vote. And don't just vote on the presidential election, vote on the sheriff, vote on the senator, vote on the mayor, vote on all that. All those people are the ones that actually make decisions about this stuff. And so I kind of took that to heart, and I'm beating the drum on getting the vote out. By the way, in our state, in Massachusetts, anyone can do absentee balloting. So I'm pushed all our Cambridge-based employees to do absentee ballots. You don't want to wait in that line to vote.
Yeah.
You don't want to wait. 2, you don't want to get exposed or heaven forbid you have COVID, expose somebody else. So get on that, because you got to do that early.
That's really thoughtful. There's a couple of things I want to pull on there. First of all, I totally agree with you on the march, the fallacy of the march of history. And it's interesting because in a totally different realm, since you have an equation on the chalkboard, so I'm inspired. I just read a book about kind of the history of math and how nothing, a lot of stuff happened in math by the Greeks, and some stuff happened in the math in the Middle East and India, before the zero kind of AD, and then nothing happened until 1600. And it's things happen in these bursts of progress, whether it's in science and math, it's in society. And I totally agree with you. And I think we're in the middle of one now, which is really exciting. And I think the idea that you talked about of this kind of marketing center at Howard University I'd love to click on that one, because I think that's a powerful one for other people to consider, where it feels like, I don't want to speak for you, but it feels like that's going to create more opportunity, but also probably help HubSpot too. So it's kind of a win-win for everyone. How do you think about it as a business?
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second.
Oh, you can put an equation up there. Oh, look at this. Go to the chalkboard.
So we talked a little bit before the call about, where do you take a stand, and where do you put your chips on the table? Kind of when we think about it, we draw a Venn diagram and we say, okay, what's good for the world?
Yep.
And what's morally feels right?
Yep.
And then what's good for HubSpot?
Yeah.
And Howard University is right in the middle of that. It's that we have a very senior executive who's Black, who went to Howard University and is a huge advocate for the school, and got us a couple years ago involved with them to teach classes and whatnot down there. That is an amazing institution. And we want to recruit more folks from there. So we're let's double down and see if we can help. And let's see where we can give our leverage. I think it's we're looking for places where we have something unique to give to the world. Money, fine, but we have know-how about customer experience, about marketing, about CRM. We can help people figure this stuff out. Where we've got some unique angle, we like to lean in.
I love that. It's funny. I'll tell you about the one we're doing, which might be, I think it fits into that Venn diagram for us, which is in our world, as you know, customer success is this kind of rapidly growing job. It's new.
The SV, what is it? SV, what is this?
SV Academy. So we partnered with this organization called SV Academy.
Yeah.
And they're they basically help people from underprivileged backgrounds get into tech in general. That's their mission. On their own, they're doing great stuff. We basically partnered up with them and said, well, okay, what do you have? You have this CS job where everyone wants to hire more CSMs. You guys are hiring CSMs all the time.
Right.
It's the 6th fastest growing job in the world according to LinkedIn. It's a job that like nobody's an expert at, so you can get trained on it. And also if we keep hiring from other companies, we're just in a constant war for talent with each other. We got to expand the funnel. And at the same time, it's a job where, we can change the representation in tech. You know that tech does not do a good job of representing Black people, Latinx people, and other people of underrepresented backgrounds. And so we basically created this program called CSU, where we're going to take our know-how about customer success, partner with SV Academy, train people from underprivileged backgrounds about customer success, bring them into internships at companies like HubSpot or Gainsight or others. And a lot of our customers have signed on to do internships, and then basically give them a path to get into this profession. So I think it kind of helps everyone.
I love that.
Yeah.
What's the number one?
Say again?
No, the 6th fastest growing job was CSS.
Oh, I know. I don't even. It was something. It's funny. It was not a tech thing. It was something completely unrelated. Data scientist is up there too, but it wasn't number one. Right. I need to go back and look. Yeah. So LinkedIn does this analysis about what's the most promising fast. Yeah. Please go ahead.
I have to check. The SV Academy sounds fantastic. I got to check that out.
Totally. We'd love to we can get HubSpot involved if you guys want to be part of it. So. We've got this, second theme that you and I deal with, and you care a lot about it, which is our teams, right? How do we drive success for our teams? They're all trying to, human beings trying to get through their lives and their jobs, and things have never been more complicated than they are right now for all of us as employers and with our employees. So I'm going to touch on a couple of themes. Like the first one is just going to this kind of distributed model. HubSpot, tell me if I'm wrong, but you guys are starting in Boston. I think hub kind of comes from the term people use for Boston, right? Like you guys are. It's that's where you started, but now you have people all over, and now people are working from home. What was that transition like for you guys culturally?
It wasn't bad, quite honestly. We had decided last year that remote would be our 3rd biggest office. So
right.
A whole bunch of offices, Cambridge and Dublin are quite large, but remote was our 3rd biggest and growing. So we were leaning into it, and we were kind of getting it. And this forced us obviously to make massive changes, but it hasn't been as bad as I think it could have been had we been one of those companies that was really office first, FaceTime first. That's never been sort of our DNA. I think one of the things that's interesting that we're doing now that's different than the rest of Silicon Valley is our office is open now. You can go into the office and it's the exact kind of opposite what you're reading in the press about everyone else is doing. And I'll tell you why we did that. We do surveys of the employees and say, do you want to go back to the office? How likely are you to go back to the office? Outlining what would it be like in the office. And then we did a little thing called Candle in the Window. And Candle in the Window is if you're in an extremely bad situation at home, you have an abusive relationship, the wheels are off at home, and it's just, you can't get work done. You have somebody who's abusing your roommate or whatever, sign up for the Candle in the Window. And we said, I can't even see it. Very few people would see who you are. So we opened the one of our buildings for this Candle in the Window program, so people could come in and kind of get out of the home, and like get in a different environment. Not that many people have taken us up on it. It's not like hundreds. It's in the tens out of thousands of employees. But I kind of like that we did that for some people who are really struggling at home. Yeah,
it's so good that you did that, because I feel like I'm very privileged, lucky that I got a good setup at home, and a lot of people do, but a lot of people don't. I think that resonates. I was going to ask you the other question, which is the other demographic we wrestle with at home is the parents with young kids.
Totally.
And I struggle with, I don't even know what to do as a CEO about the situation. It's a terrible situation, and schools aren't coming back for a lot of locations. I'm just curious if any things you've figured out what to do there, or just be empathetic. Like, what are you thinking?
I feel like it's still two cities. Either some people are incredibly productive, like single people who are living in the God, were they productive, for better or worse. And then, if you're a single mom with 3 kids, we have a fair amount of that kind of thing. Good luck. You're just not getting anything done. So it's sort of been the tale of two cities. We're trying to be as empathetic as possible. We've created a lot of programming. So like for kids, let's say you got a kid between the age of 7 and 12, like we have programming over Zoom during the day where you can bring your kids in educational programming or whatnot to try to keep them engaged and get a little bit of a break. We've talked about just starting a school, an online school. We're going to kind of wait and see how it goes. We have a lot of employees in Massachusetts, and in Massachusetts, they're kind of giving schools a choice at this point, so it's a little unclear what's going to happen.
That's interesting because, I talked to another CEO who actually CEO of Rapid7, you might know. He talked about hiring some basically kind of high school, college kids who themselves needed jobs to basically run a school for their employees. I think it's sad that we've gotten to that point, but maybe that type of thing needs to happen a little bit more. So yeah, it's challenging. That's interesting. I haven't found the perfect answer for this one either. The last thing on the team is that, you have also just a phenomenal culture. Like you guys win like every award. I mean, seriously, super impressed by what you've built. And, anything like non-obvious that you've been trying to do to keep the vibe going of HubSpot?
Well, just back to our earlier conversation and when it kind of intersects with culture.
Yeah.
Like, let's just say over the course of time, you've got a graph. And this is the amount people care about diversity and inclusion.
Yeah.
They didn't really care when I first started my career. They may have cared, but like it wasn't a big issue for a new employee. But it's been steadily going up over time. Yeah. And then obviously it's gone like this, George Floyd. I'll give you my 2 cents on that. I think all companies have 2 products. They have the product they sell their customers, and the product they sell their employees.
That's cool. I like that. Yeah.
And the product they sell their employees is called culture. Mm-hmm. And that culture, first of all, recruiting, I think, is going to be interesting over the next couple of years. I thought initially in the tech world that recruiting was going to get a lot easier. But I think what's really going to happen is everyone's going to embrace remote, which means you're hiring people in Cambridge. I'm hiring people in Palo Alto.
I'm coming for you, buddy. Yeah, no, just kidding.
Exactly. And so we used to compete in Cambridge with Akamai, with Wayfair, with Boston Companies. A handful of great tech companies. Now we're competing with every company in the world effectively. So the supply and demand equation has really changed in some really good ways and some really, really bad ways. I think this will change in a good way for workers in tech, where there'll be much more opportunity. I also think this will mean that for employers like you and me, I think we'll end up paying more to employees. I think attrition will go up for employees, things like that.
Because of the fluidity of the market will create
much more good opportunity out there.
Yeah.
Because let's just say you're a VP of service and you live in Boston and you were looking for a new job, like you had opportunities with 20 companies in Boston. Now you got opportunities with any company in the United States, or at least within a reasonable number of time zones.
It's funny because given what I do, I end up connecting a lot of heads of CS and service with jobs because people know that I know people, right? And every CEO, when they ask me, they tell me the spec, what are they looking for? And I always say, what's the location? And every single CEO post-COVID had said, before COVID, I would have said New York or Boston. And now I'm like, wherever. Right?
As long as it's not like in 12 time zones away.
Time zone's the only issue. Yeah.
Now, I think your value prop for employees is going to shift. So what I think's interesting about employees that are entering the workforce over the last several years, and it's spread to all employees in the workforce, is they all have a personal brand, right?
Yes.
You certainly have your own personal brand. You're cultivating it right now. You're very active on social, and it says something about you. Most people have some sort of a personal brand. It started on, maybe started on Snapchat, or maybe it started this year, but there's a brand. Most of these people joining your company think of your company as an extension of that personal brand, right? And so when they join your company, many of them care deeply about D&I, and it's part of their personal brand. And if your company isn't out loud and proud about D&I, doesn't have a truly inclusive and diverse workforce, you're going to be at a deep competitive disadvantage to other employers who have it. And so let's just say you don't buy the moral imperative to do something on this. As a pure red-blooded capitalist, it doesn't matter if you're recruiting a bunch of middle-aged white men or you're really going after a diverse workforce. Nobody now doesn't want to work for a diverse, inclusive company.
100% agree.
On your all-white male team. And the value prop, like your products, well, that's got to evolve over time. But your second product, your culture, that product's got to change a lot right now with COVID to attract and retain a fully diverse group of employees, compete on a new marketplace, and then a whole new attitude of those employees coming in. So I think it's a very interesting time in the time of being a CEO, being an HR person, being a recruiter, all that shifting.
I love that. And I think that the concept of the two products, which I'm sure that's always existed, but you articulated it well. And the thing that I think is not obvious is you're saying that the competition for talent's only going to go up. Some people believe it goes down because you basically have people move to cheaper markets or whatever. I think what you said makes so much sense. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, especially for the people that are the most in demand to be recruited, that have the most skill set and whatever, which is a lot of the top, the cutting edge, the most promising jobs, all that kind of stuff. So let's switch gears and talk about my favorite topic, customer success, and yours as well. I mean, honestly, HubSpot, for people that don't know, has been working on customer success, thinking about it, advocating it since the beginning, and use different terminology over the years. I know you have that Flywheel HBR article, which is awesome. Or I think it was HBR, one of the publications you had, and you've written a lot about this. And then you've practiced it internally with your customers. And you most recently brought in Yamini to run customer success and all of your customer operations. So I'd love to hear a little bit about the story of evolution and kind of what this new chapter of CS is for HubSpot.
Where did you even start?
Where do you start? I know, exactly. Tell me about what it was like before and where do you try to get?
I'll give you a couple thoughts on it.
Yeah, another graph. I want another equation, something like that.
I can't think without writing on the thing now.
I love it.
One of the things I would say about HubSpot. So I was in a board meeting like 8 years ago, and one of the board members said, HubSpot's more sizzle than steak. I almost cried. I was like, that was hard to hear. And they were a little bit right. And at the time, our NPS was about 30.
Yep.
And we started working on customer experience and working hard on it and working on the product and working on everything. And last week, our NPS was 53.
Nice.
Really moved the needle up into the right. And when we benchmark ourselves versus, Oracle, Salesforce, Adobe, these giant monolithic private equity firms with sales organizations, much higher NPS now. And here's the other thing I would say about company building these days. I had a business school professor, Nick, and that business school professor used to say all the time, your product has got to be 10 times better than the competition, or don't even bother starting your company.
I've heard that before. Yeah.
I would argue today, your customer experience has to be 10 times better than the competition, or don't even bother starting the company. And I'll give you my argument on the consumer side, and it's spread to B2B. Like myself, I woke up this morning on a Casper mattress. I put on my Warby Parker glasses. I turned Spotify on, listened to the Grateful Dead. I shaved my neck a little bit with my Dollar Shave Club razor.
Wow.
My Peloton, had some breakfast, fed my dog Romeo, with some Chewy toys from Chewy.com. I'm on Zoom and Slack all day. All these products I use are pretty new.
Yep.
Yeah, they're a little better, but they all have much better experiences. They all use freemium models. They have great service. They have great term business models. That's where the innovation seems to come from. And so we're pretty obsessed with that value prop to offer our customers, and we're creating it for our customers ourselves.
That's awesome. And so that's you've had that for a while, as you said. That's like the march of history, and then you might be at a new inflection point with some of the changes you made. Talk about what this new phase is like. What are you trying to achieve, changing some of your organization and all that?
So I just finished. We have a bi-monthly management meeting, which is a customer-centric meeting where we have our UX team or our customer experience team interview a panel of 4 customers, and they interview them for 45 minutes, and then we can ask them questions, and then we break and spend an hour talking about what we learned. And we have different pockets of them different times. This was a group of freemium users that hadn't upgraded yet. And what I think was good about this one is we think about that customer experience not so much as a funnel. I think the funnel is kind of dead, but like a flywheel.
Flywheel, right.
And what we're trying to do is spin that darn thing faster. How do we make it easier to take all the friction out of it? And that's been hard work. And so every time today we identified, there were 3 different pieces of friction that I identified. Our pricing page is too complicated. Our business model is a little bit complicated. The way we communicate how to do emails and mass emails to our system, that's a little hard. We're just trying to file down the sharp edges in our flywheel, and we're obsessed with that.
That's awesome. And does that change how you kind of structure the company then, or how you think about sales and marketing and CS? Because it's a wheel. It's not a linear process where you have a handoff from sales, post sales, and all that.
It is. We just hired. You mentioned her. Maybe the best hire in my career. We hired a woman named Yamini Rangan.
Wow,
and she's terrific. We hired her from Dropbox, and we gave her the flywheel. So she owns marketing, sales, and service, and then she's creating like a revenue ops team in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of one human being owning all that, and then we have a product flywheel, a product that intersects with it. But we sort of have company pillar, product pillar, flywheel pillar, but we pulled all that.
You probably have a people pillar too, tying back to the previous discussion, right? And people flywheel as well.
We do.
This is awesome because I do think the future of business is not linear processes that kind of start and stop, but these kind of continuous cycles. And this is a lot. If you've seen, well, I'm sure if people don't know the flywheel concept, one of the originators was Jim Collins, who kind of taught. I don't know if that's who inspired you with this concept or not.
Jim Collins and Bezos both use it.
Yeah, Bezos adopted it based on Jim Collins' work, and it's really interesting. It really fits into this concept of CS being more than just a kind of function that's retaining customers, but being a core part of this whole flywheel as you go.
And Nick, my issue with I call it ye old funnel, is like marketing gets a lot of credit.
Yeah, right.
Sales gets a lot of credit.
Totally.
And I talk to these customers, like these customers today, and say, well, why'd you start using our free product in the first place? Somebody told me about it, you did in my last company. It's word of mouth. And so the funnel, just like the customer kind of pops out the bottom. That's not really the way it works. Customers, visitors, leads, customers fuel your flywheel, and you're happy your customers are on fast little spin.
It's so funny because that diagram is kind of the first investor pitch for Gainsight. Was literally, and it's interesting because I feel like the world is just kind of catching on to it now in a more strategic level. You guys are kind of forefront of that, but I think you articulate it really, really well. The last kind of topic is then investors, and I don't want to. You talk about investor stuff all the time, so I don't think we need to spend a ton of time. But I think the thing that's interesting is what of this stuff is relevant to investors. Do investors and boards care about these things that we've talked about? Do they fit together in some nice puzzle? Are this part of the Venn diagram? I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
What do you mean? I'm not sure I follow.
You're running a public company, you've got public shareholders, do you talk about community? Do you talk about your teammates? Do you talk about all this stuff? Is there a Venn diagram that shows how it all fits together and everyone wins through this? How do you think about your messaging and your communication around all this? Are they separate?
People know it's a competitive advantage for us, our culture and our people. Yeah. We went, like you said, we win all those awards. It's an unfair advantage, I think, in today's day and age.
So investors are starting to get it, you think, in terms of
more than starting. They've been asking us about it for a long time. Our last earnings call, we had a couple questions about it. I think it's super, super relevant that you get that stuff right in today's day and age. And that's that employee flywheel is the same thing. Like visitor to employee slide, or someone goes to Glassdoor, they visit your site, they interview, they become an employee. You want all your ex-employees to be pretty happy and to be feeding back to new employees. So
totally. Yeah, and ex-employees can become customers. They can become customers too. They can these things. I think I love it. This is, I think, a really new way of running a company, which is kind of the whole philosophy of this series. So I always like to close out with some word association just to leave people with some quick takeaways. So I'm going to give you a few terms, and you have to just say the first thing that comes to mind. Digital transformation, which we didn't talk about, but it's sort of underpinning all this.
Finally.
Good. All right. COVID-19.
Early.
Oh, that's brutal. I hope you're wrong. Customer success. Customer success.
Flywheel.
I think you've articulated very well. Human first.
You.
Oh, dude, I'm trying to learn from you, man. Seriously, we're all learning together. And I'll do the last one. I'm going to add one on. Chalkboards is my final one.
Retro.
I like.
You go through them. Digital transformation. Go.
Okay, digital transformation.
Don't think too much.
Step function.
COVID.
Rorschach test for society.
Ooh, like that. Customer success.
Everything.
Human first.
The future.
I like it.
And chalkboard for me would be my next purchase on Amazon, because I'm definitely buying one. You've inspired me in so many ways, but at a minimum, chalkboards. I love Venn diagrams. I love equations. This has been an amazing discussion, Brian. It's so awesome to be able to spend time with you. I appreciate every chance we get. Hopefully the audience enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it.